She likes to call it emotional abuse. What the fuck is emotional abuse? Are we that fucking weak that someone can't tell you with passion what they fucking feel without them abusing you?
Hey, hello, I'm JulieJo. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a different type of video. I talk a lot about MLMs and scams, but today we're going to talk about Tony Robbins. I'm trying to make it more casual because it's such like an intense kind of topic. We're going to talk about his scandals pretty much. And I just think it's important to cover this topic, and I hope you like the video. Feel free to like it and subscribe if you want. So you can hit the bell button if you want to get notified when I post. I'm going to be doing my makeup while I'm doing it, and I'm also going to be reading from my script because this is a lot and I want to cover it well. So just bear with me. I will say that there's a big trigger warning, and it's about sexual misconduct as well as talking about victims and shaming victims. So if those things, if they're hard for you to watch, I do not recommend this video. I will also try and give you like a trigger warning before I talk about that part. So you can watch as much as you want until that part if that's something that bothers you or something that you struggle with when hearing about it or it's triggering. Don't forget to follow my social media. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at walkin_on_Lexapro. Let's get started. So Tony Robbins is pretty popular when it comes to self-help guru. He's like one of the biggest self-help gurus in the world. And I think that it's interesting because he is a large guy, right? He's probably like 6'7", I think. And he has a very unique voice. It's very loud, like a booming voice. He has a presence on stage that I think captivates a lot of people. He has an interesting story that has helped him get to where he is. And his net worth is also about $500 million. So he's definitely one of the most successful self-help gurus in the world. And he has a lot of famous friends like Oprah and Kim Kardashian and Kanye West and stuff like that. Eric Worre adores this man. If you don't know who Eric Worre is, go watch my best friend's most recent video. Her name is Erin Bees. I'll try to link it up below if I remember. And yeah, he's a big network marketing guy, scam guy, allegedly, in my opinion. But today we're going to talk about the alleged stuff that Tony has done. So why am I talking about this? I think is a good question, right? Like, why would I talk about this and cover this? It's intriguing to me. It's intriguing to see someone who's supposed to be known as someone who helps people thrive, and watch him ultimately end up hurting a lot of people. I think it's important to talk about, and I think that he's kind of had his own cult, in my opinion. And I also think it's important when it comes to network marketing and scams because this guy is someone that they invite all the time. He's at as many conferences as possible for network marketing. He loves it. He thinks it's awesome. I mean, I'll tell you, he loves Eric Worre. I think I don't know if he loves Eric Worre, but Eric Worre loves him. And of course, there is a toxicity when it comes to self-help. And I'm not saying all self-help is toxic. I am saying it can be. And people like him are part of the reason that self-help can be toxic. Please know that if you love self-help, I'm not trying to slam it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with just like basic self-help, just trying to be better, trying to live a better life. But please don't look to someone like Tony Robbins as a god, because I feel like that's kind of what's happened. He is a celebrity, and sometimes people look to celebrities like they're gods, and this man is not even close. So that's why I want to talk about it. Let's get started. He does have quite a large amount of allegations against him. Please don't comment on my makeup. I'm not a makeup person. Like, I just need to do my makeup for tonight. So some of these allegations against him include staff complaints. I hate that. People that help him run his business, it seems like he's not been great to them all the time. So that's something we're going to cover, as well as shaming followers and victims. This part, it will probably be triggering, and I'll make sure to try to comment on it beforehand. And then the last one is, of course, sexual misconduct. That is definitely something that people have come out to talk about when it comes to Tony Robbins. So, of course, he denies all of this. And there's some things, in my opinion, that can't be denied. And we'll talk about why, but I have video proof that maybe some of you have seen. And I'll make sure to show it to you. Don't worry. So the first thing I want to cover is hitting on audience members. And I'm going to read, I'll have all of my stuff below, all of the links that I'm talking about. I'm specifically reading from this link, and I'll have it below too. So Gary King is a former director of security for Tony Robbins. He alleged to BuzzFeed News that Robbins had him find attractive event attendees and get their phone numbers. Robbins' former personal chef, Mickey Knowles, told the outlet the security guys would tell stories about women they'd had to take up to his room. A former bodyguard corroborated the allegations and said he'd witnessed Robbins make passes at women in crowds. In a second report from June, 2 women told BuzzFeed News about encounters they had with Robbins. One woman said he placed her hand on his crotch and touched her breast, while other alleged that he kissed her, hugged her, and touched her breast. And stop there, don't worry. Robbins, through his attorneys, vehemently denied the claims. Vehemently, I think that's how you say it, but did note that before marrying his current wife, Sage, that Robbins had consensual relationships with women who aggressively sought him out. That actually is going to be a bigger section as I continue to break down other sections. So I want to give you a trigger warning for this next section. This next section is about him being accused of misconduct. So there are quite a few things that he's been accused of when it comes to sexual harassment, including appearing nude to staffers, touching them inappropriately, making advances that are not wanted. And this allegation has happened more than once to certain people. They've experienced it more than once, which is experience it in general is a horrible thing. Being touched and sexually harassed, in my opinion, at any point and any time is awful, but it happening to you more than once from the same person, it's horrific. It even goes so far as to talk about how some of these people that worked for him would have actual consensual sex, and his wife would find out, and then that person would be fired, like straight up. The issue I see with this, and what I'm going to continue to say, is that he's definitely a celebrity. He has power over a lot of people, including, of course, people who work for him, and his audience and the power dynamic that he has is not good in these situations. I also believe that power dynamic definitely makes it harder for people to speak up about what has happened to them, as well as some of the stuff he said about victimhood, which we will get to in this video. He allegedly stared at women often, even after they say that, they aren't interested in any kind of sexual relationship with him. He would stare at them. It's uncomfortable and awkward. So allegedly one person in particular shared their experience with it about this, and they were fired by Robbins. Not after. So they shared it after they were fired. Allegedly, she turned him down and made it obvious that she was quite uncomfortable when he was staring at her. That's why she was fired. Allegedly. Don't want to get in trouble. Okay, some of it, and this, oh my gosh, this is wild to me. Some of it goes so far as to people alleging that he exposed himself to his staff. Of course, he denies it completely, and he made it seem that maybe they just walk in on him while he's showering or dressing, but that he has no recollection of that, which is interesting because I feel like you would have recollection of someone walked in on you while you were naked, but maybe that's just normal people would have that recollection. I don't know. So we are going to go into some of the victimhood part, which is a very difficult part, I will say, to listen to. We're going to go into some of the things that he actually said out loud and proof of some of the stuff he said about victimhood and Me Too. It is very difficult to hear. Let's get into it, I guess. There's a quote by Tony Robbins. It says, "I'm not knocking the Me Too movement. I'm knocking victimhood." After I got some backlash, I find this interesting because I see this a lot with MLMs, multi-level marketing, and how they also see the same thing. Don't be a victim, don't have a victim mindset. And there are a few videos I've talked about this victim mindset issue that they all have. And not all of them, but I think a lot of them, especially top leaders, when it comes to that, I have one specific video that I feel like I cover, and these people are just So intense. Definitely big trigger warning. If you're going to watch it, I'm going to link it above. To continue on with his quote, if you use the Me Too movement to try to get significance, and certainly by attacking and destroying someone else, you haven't grown an ounce. All you've done is basically use a drug called significance to make yourself feel good. I think it's important that we watch some of the things that he said. So yeah, let's watch some of it.
She likes to call it emotional abuse. What the fuck is emotional abuse? Are we that fucking weak that someone can't tell you with passion what they fucking feel without them abusing you? Tell me about that. What led to that? What role did you play? I'm not suggesting there's any excuse for hitting women, so hear me. But I also want you to know that people don't just act a certain fucking way. But what I find when I usually dig in and I take the time, what they call abuse, is a relabeling of they didn't like what the person said or did. Has he loved you? Has he looked out for you? Has he put up for you when you've been a crazy bitch? Have you ever been a crazy bitch? Ever? Probably. Shouldn't this guy be out strung up and shot? The way you described it, certainly should. And I would normally join you if I didn't know you were lying. Not that you're lying that he is not behaving ways that are great all the time, or even harsh. I know by your body that you're lying. I know by the words, I know by the context that you're lying, because nobody is evil in every moment, or you wouldn't have been there for 7 years.
If you are wondering why things look different, it's because the rest of the video was muted. Go me. If you're a subscriber of mine, you know that's not surprising. So we are on the accused of sexual misconduct section. We just listened to him talk about victims and pretty much just say it's our fault if we are victimized. And the reason I'm smiling and like scoffing every once in a while, laughing, is because it's uncomfortable for me. This is a difficult topic for me to talk about, and I think it's a difficult topic for most people to talk about. But this was said to women in front of women at an event. And there's other things that have been said, and I think we should talk about them as well. So one person in particular challenged him and confronted him at an event on the Me Too movement. And I'll just let her speak.
I think you misunderstand the Me Too movement. I think the Me...
Not for you, personally. What you're seeing is people making themselves significant by making somebody else wrong and getting certainty. And there's nothing wrong with that, it just won't make you happy. I'm not knocking the Me Too movement, I'm knocking victimhood.
On her defense of Me Too.
That's pretty straightforward. There's way more to it. I'm going to cut in every once in a while throughout this video and talk about it for a second. So let's keep watching.
Who are using it for their own personal devices. But there are also a significant number of people who are using it not to relive whatever may or happen to them, but to make it safe for the young women.
She got a slight cheer, obviously, and she is invited to join him on stage. Now, this next part is definitely probably triggering for some people who've gone up against abusers.
Why are you pushing back? I didn't tell you to push back. Why are you pushing back? Why are you pushing so hard? When you push someone else, it doesn't make you more safe. It just makes them angry.
Apparently, it's something he does at a lot of his seminars, this pushing exercise.
I'm going to pause it here so that, we're only allowed to show a certain amount of time for each clip of the video. But intimidation and the power dynamic, I think this is a perfect example, and she's going to go into it more and talk about it. He definitely knew what he was doing, in my opinion.
But I didn't know where he was going with it. I'm a tall woman, I'm 5'8". He is so big. And when he stepped up to me right at first and he looked down on me, I triggered because he looked angry.
I think he was angry because, someone like him going up against a woman who's much shorter and smaller than him, petite, and she outshines him, she calls him out on something wrong, that definitely would trigger him. And some people like him.
So I just with someone the other day, very famous man, very powerful man, who's saying how stressed he is because he interviewed 3 people that day. One was a woman, 2 were men. The woman was better qualified, but she was very attractive, and he knew I can't have her around because it's too big a risk, and he hired somebody else. I've had a dozen men tell me this.
I think that's the men's problem, not the woman's problem. I think you need to hang out with better people. That's a ridiculous And she's up there shaking her head, like, right in front of him, standing face to face. It's, I mean, you saw it, but it's shocking to watch him act like this, because to the people there, he probably looks strong and resilient and like, yes, this is good. But to someone who gets it, to someone who has been hurt and abused, there are characteristics of him that are similar to abusers, in my opinion.
Founder of the Me Too movement, Tarana Burke, wrote, "If you talk to more survivors and less sexist businessmen, maybe you'll understand what we want."
Oh, that was so good. I love what she says. She continues, "We want safety. We want healing. We want accountability. We want closure. We want to live a life free from shame. That's the reality of the Me Too movement, sir. Do better." And he does go on to apologize. And there's so much more, and I have this video below. I recommend watching it. It's almost a 7-minute video. It's excellent. So please go watch it. The person that went up against him, she's incredible. But let's keep going. So we've seen him do these things, and it's kind of like he's letting the curtain fall a little bit compared to what he used to show. He did later apologize after he was called out by the leader of the Me Too movement and said he had profound admiration for the Me Too movement. And he said, "I agree with the goals of the Me Too movement and its founding message of empowerment through empathy, which makes it a beautiful source of good." To me, this is definitely a 180 of what he originally spoke about. But once you get caught taking a shit on something, sometimes they make you clean it up. And I think that's what they did here. He took a big old shit on something that he shouldn't have, and he was forced to clean it up. I do have something else linked below where BuzzFeed got a transcript. It has Robbins talking about victimhood and the culture of it, and in the United States, and he was really upset talking about it. He completely dismissed the concept of emotional abuse so far as to literally say, I quote, "Victimhood is rewarded in our culture." What the actual fuck? Rewarded? You think we enjoy being victims? It's sickening. All I'm going to say about the victimhood aspect of it. We are moving on to the next part of this video, which is his events. His events are allegedly very physically, emotionally, and mentally stressful. And it seems though he enjoys that. He likes making his events that way. So please comment below. I want to hear, have you gone to an event? What was your experience looking back now? Well, there's stuff we're going to talk about, and I'm not going to ask that question, but just think back now on what your experience was like. So apparently, and I've not been to any of his events that he puts on, but they are emotionally, physically, mentally stressful, and it seems like they last from early in the morning to late at night, and it sounds exhausting. Kind of like breaking the person down, making them vulnerable. This allows people to have better control over you and manipulate you when you are so exhausted. This includes people actually being dehydrated, not having enough food, not being in good conditions where they are. He actually has a former logistics contractor who said, "We used to joke about people starting to pop like popcorn." He even has his former director of security saying that part of his job title was crisis and emotional meltdowns. And that blows my mind, because imagine being at an event where someone comes to expect to have a good time, but you end up having a crisis, like an emotional meltdown. It even went so far as to some people threatening to unalive themselves and people attempting to do that. Now, of course, I don't know that because I've never been to one. Maybe you can tell me below, like I mentioned earlier. I just feel like you're not supposed to have that experience. Now, I know it's supposed to be maybe not the most comfortable thing in the world, but it's definitely not supposed to be like that. I feel like everyone should have their basic needs met, and if you don't have enough water or food, that's not your basic needs met. So, and I know that people pay a lot of money to go to those. This is probably one of the most wild things that I heard in like a funny, also weird and gross way, but allegedly some of his employees had mentioned that if you didn't implement what he taught you or the strategies that he taught during the event, you would have to drink a shot. They were made to believe that there was laxative in it, but his lawyers claimed that of course there was not laxative in it. I don't know, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. It did have pickle juice, apple juice, lemon juice, tomato juice, and a dash of Tabasco, and honest to God, that sounds like a laxative to me. This is wild to me because what the hell? Accountability is great. Having a mentor is awesome. But having accountability from a mentor that makes you do something like this, I think it's not a mentor that's going to help you. From this to exhaustion, mentally, emotionally, physically, all of that we just went over, it seems like he enjoys watching people at their wits' end, and it seems like he doesn't enjoy watching people thrive, in my opinion, of course. Just after what we've gone through, especially the videos in of itself tell me a lot, but reading more stories, because I'm not covering everything. Truly, there's too much, and it would be too much of a video to cover. I don't want to do that. I'm covering just what I want to cover and some of the bigger picture things. But to take it even further, he did actually have to settle a class action lawsuit with some volunteers of his. They didn't actually get paid. There wasn't pay for food or travel or anything like that. Their so-called gift, their payment, air quotes, was watching him for free. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a hefty price to watch him in general, but to not have food, to be working 12 to 14 hours a day, to not have water, to pretty much be, and this is what they talked about, being locked in a room until he said you can go. The working conditions were bad, and he had to settle for that. Something I do want to briefly touch on were his fire walks. He was so well known for his fire walks, and to the point where people implement them now, even like Prove It, a multi-level marketing company, in some of their conventions or meetings or whatever, they implement fire walks. But let's talk about that for a moment. What makes me laugh about this is Bill Nye, straight up savage, right? If you don't know much about Bill Nye, he's the science guy. Let me tell you that. You know what I mean? Anybody see Bill Nye the Science Guy? Me? He said that simple physics makes walking on burning coals actually not too difficult. It goes on to explain further from a physicist that talks about it. The foot is never in contact long enough to induce a burn, and the burning wood that heats the coal is a good insulator. So that's something Bill Nye talked about. And he never said Tony Robbins' name, but like people knew who he was talking about, because he would say something like, people will pay like $5,000 to walk across burning coals. It's supposed to be a spiritual event, to do something super difficult, like walking across something that could potentially horribly hurt you, and it doesn't hurt you. And he's pretty much saying like it's not meant to, like the way that it's done. I mean, if you stand there for like a minute or two on specific coals and just stand there and look at it, yeah, you're probably going to burn your foot, but you can walk across it because of simple physics. So while he talks about it as this really intense thing and it's supposed to be really spiritual, I think it's more to take your money, in my opinion. So we're coming to the end of this video, and there are a lot of different articles that we've not talked about or that I've read through, and the BuzzFeed News article is a really good one, and it's really intense, to the point where Simon Schuster allegedly dropped an upcoming book that Robbins was going to write with someone else. He also literally denied behaving poorly, irresponsibly, maliciously, in any way, shape, or form, and that pretty much everything they were saying was false. BuzzFeed News article, that what they were saying was false. He stated this by writing a letter to the Medium, which is an outlet, and he has like over 77,000 followers on it. I will have that linked below as well, so feel free to go read that. So we've covered like what I pretty much want to cover, just the basic touches of each thing. I encourage you to look more into it if you would like to. If you don't, I don't blame you, because it gets worse. It gets worse. Please go ahead and like this video. Leave a comment below letting me know if you've experienced a Tony Robbins event, what you thought about this entire situation, what you thought about the leaked recordings of him. It's wild to me that someone who is like the #1 self-help guru in the world with $500 million net worth is actually a piece of shit. But I guess I'm not that surprised, because it checks out. It makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. So go ahead and subscribe if you like this video or want to see more videos like this. I really hope you have the most amazing morning, afternoon, evening, and night, wherever you are in the world and whenever you're watching. I'll see you next time.
Show you what I'm all about. Make up for what we lost. Tonight is the night that we're gonna fall in love. I don't care about you and him. I don't don't care about what has been. I only care about yours.